Imagine checking into a hotel where the owner personally escorts you to your room, flashing that perfect smile as he locks the door behind you. The gas begins seeping through the walls. You pound on the door, but it won't budge, and no one can hear your screams through the soundproof walls. This wasn't a nightmare. This was Tuesday night at H. Holmes's murder castle during the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. While millions of visitors celebrated American progress and innovation just blocks away, a charming doctor named Henry Howard Holmes was perfecting the most systematic killing operation in American history. His three-story hotel wasn't just a business. It was a human slaughterhouse disguised as respectable accommodation, complete with gas chambers, body chutes, and an industrial crematorium. Over 200 people entered his building and simply vanished, their screams absorbed by specially designed soundproof walls. Herman Webster Mudgett was born in 1861 in Gilmanton, New Hampshire, to a devoutly Methodist family. Even as a child, he displayed disturbing behaviors that hinted at the monster he would become. Classmates later recalled how young Herman would torture animals and seemed fascinated by death. He was also a pathological liar and master manipulator, traits that would serve him well in his criminal career. After graduating from medical school at the University of Michigan in 1884, Mudgett began his transformation into H. Holmes. He moved to Chicago, a rapidly growing city where a man could reinvent himself without questions. The bustling metropolis was perfect for someone who needed anonymity and fresh victims. Holmes was handsome, well-educated, and possessed an almost supernatural charm that made people trust him instantly. In 1886, Holmes took a job at a pharmacy owned by Dr. Elizabeth Holton, a widow who was struggling to run the business alone. Within months, he had convinced her to make him a partner, and soon after, Dr. Holton mysteriously disappeared. Holmes claimed she had moved to California for her health, but neighbors suspected something far more sinister. He now owned the entire pharmacy and began planning something unprecedented. Holmes purchased an empty lot directly across the street and began construction of what would appear to be a normal three-story mixed-use building. The ground floor would house shops and his pharmacy. The second floor would serve as office space, and the third floor would be a hotel. But Holmes had special requirements for his architects and contractors, requirements that would turn his building into a maze of death. Construction of Holmes's building was deliberately chaotic and secretive. He constantly changed architects, fired workers without warning, and insisted on handling much of the construction himself. He told different contractors conflicting stories about the building's purpose, ensuring that no single person understood the complete layout. What emerged was an architectural nightmare designed specifically for murder. The second and third floors were a labyrinth of over 100 windowless rooms, dead-end hallways, and hidden passages. Some rooms were soundproofed and fitted with gas pipes connected to his basement laboratory. Others contained trapdoors leading to chutes that dropped directly into the basement. There were staircases that led to nowhere, doors that opened onto brick walls, and secret chambers where Holmes could hide and watch his victims. The basement was perhaps the most horrifying part of the structure. Holmes had installed a crematorium large enough to dispose of human bodies, along with vats of acid for dissolving remains. There were stretching racks, surgical tables, and cabinets filled with surgical instruments. This wasn't just a murder scene. It was an entire facility designed for torture, killing, and body disposal on an industrial scale. As the 1893 World's Fair approached, Holmes advertised his building as a hotel for visitors to the exposition. He specifically targeted young women traveling alone, using his medical credentials and charming personality to put them at ease. Many of these women were never seen again. Holmes would typically ask guests to pay in advance, then lead them to specially prepared rooms where they would meet their deaths. His methods varied depending on his mood and the victim. Some guests were locked in soundproof rooms and slowly suffocated as Holmes pumped gas through the walls. Others fell through trapdoors into the basement, where they were killed on his surgical tables. Some victims were tortured for days before being murdered. Holmes seemed to take genuine pleasure in their suffering, often keeping detailed notes about their deaths. But Holmes wasn't content with just killing random hotel guests. He also used his charm to seduce and murder women who worked for him. He would hire attractive young women as assistants, gradually isolate them from family and friends, then kill them when they became inconvenient or suspicious. Insurance fraud was often involved. Holmes would take out life insurance policies on his victims before murdering them. The scope of Holmes's operation was staggering. During the World's Fair, an estimated 27 million people visited Chicago, and thousands stayed in hotels throughout the city. Holmes's location, just minutes from the fairgrounds, made it the perfect hunting ground. Investigators later estimated that he may have killed over 200 people during this period alone, though the exact number will never be known. Holmes's victims weren't just random tourists. He targeted specific types of people: young women traveling alone, business partners who became inconvenient, employees who learned too much about his operations. He was calculating and methodical, choosing victims who were unlikely to be immediately missed. Many were immigrants or people from other cities who had no strong local connections. The psychological profile that emerges from studying Holmes is terrifying in its sophistication. Unlike many serial killers who act impulsively, Holmes was a long-term planner who thought years ahead. He understood human psychology and used people's natural trust and desires against them. He was also remarkably adaptable, changing his methods and appearance as needed to avoid suspicion. Holmes's downfall began in 1894, after the World's Fair ended and investigators started looking into several missing persons cases connected to his hotel. The building's strange construction had already aroused suspicion among local authorities, but Holmes's charm and apparent respectability had protected him. However, when multiple people who had been seen entering his building simply vanished, police could no longer ignore the pattern. The investigation revealed the full horror of Holmes's murder castle. Police found human remains in the basement, evidence of torture in the specially constructed rooms, and a complex system designed specifically for killing and disposing of bodies. The public was shocked that such systematic evil could exist in their city, hidden behind a facade of respectability and business success. Holmes was eventually arrested, tried, and executed in 1896. Before his death, he confessed to 27 murders, though investigators believed the actual number was much higher. His murder castle was partially destroyed by fire in 1895, though whether this was accidental or intentional remains unclear. What do you think enabled Holmes to operate for so long without detection? Was it simply the chaos of a growing city, or something more disturbing about human nature? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into history's most infamous criminals.